Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Andrew Blow, how are you on a glorious morning here in New York City where we are celebrating Martin Luther King Day? What's good?
Everything's good, man. I feel inspired. Perfect, one would say. I've been getting like responses from work emails I send like in the middle of the night on like Friday and Saturday. I'm like, damn, you guys are not observing a national holiday. I mean, we're potting.
Yeah.
We pot every day.
Yeah, but we're potting out of our love for equality.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's the spirit of today.
Yeah, someone sent me back like, oh yeah, to follow up on that, yeah, that item's not in stock. Like, can we help you with this? I'm like, wow. I was expecting a response on Tuesday.
Aren't you in a circle of children of all nationalities holding hands and singing together? That's so the NBA, they have leaned into the MLK Day schedule, and there is a full slate of games. Not that tasty today. So we thought about holding off and seeing if some of these games were worth talking about, but not the spiciest lineup.
No, I mean the biggest and brightest MVP candidate playing today would be Julius Randle.
I mean, I just find it, I don't know if suspicious is the right word, but Jokic and Doncic left off the MLK Day slate?
Wow. I mean, it is going to be a glorious day of watching basketball. Back in the day, I used to carve out my entire 12, 13, 14-hour chunk of just eating and watching games. And this was kind of like before the internet. So I wasn't even like firing off takes or anything. I was just alone eating pizza crusts, watching games.
Me, I'm currently draped in Zubaz. Head to foot in Zubaz. But my concern about today is that TJ McConnell is going to drag us back to the dark ages in his new starring role with the Indiana Pacers. He's going to set the progressive nation back.
Someone was just like, I mean, we're getting too much into basketball right now, but someone was asking. No, I'm gonna save it. Nope.
Good. Smart. That's the kind of restraint that makes you such a great co-host on a podcast.
I only shoot good shots, man.
So I've showed personally a lack of restraint lately. I'm gonna explain it to you guys. So I kind of went hammer on eBay over the last few days.
Let me know.
So I'm holding in front of me a pair of autographed photos. It's two of them. Got two from different sources as well. I sourced 2 autographed photos. Now, these both came with a certificate of authenticity.
Isaiah
8x10
Stewart,
photos.
Thomas Bryant. Who you got?
This item has been examined by one or more. Hopefully, it's more. PSA NDA authenticators, and it is our opinion that this item is genuine. That's
you're a dork. What'd you buy, comic book?
Hold
nerd?
on. The other one came with a certificate of authenticity that looks like a diploma. It's got this nice, ornate Baroque border around it. The item described below is an original autograph from the collection of Harvey and Rhoda Kuflick and carries a lifetime authenticity guarantee, only valid when numbered tamper-resistant hologram is present. There's a little hologram here. Now, I'll tell you what they are. They are both autographed photos of Dennis Franz.
That payoff, even as a funny joke, was not worth it, man. That lead-in for Dennis Franz is
They're both of Dennis Franz. One is a bust, and he's wearing a checkered jacket that seems to match his tie, and he's staring sternly at the camera, and that's autographed on the upper top left side. And the other one is of him as a Sipowicz from NYPD Blue with a pistol strapped in his waist, full body. He's got a hand on a chair, and he's gazing with a little bit of come hither, People magazine sexy look at the camera. So that's what I got into recently, my friend.
A lot of people don't know Nepo Baby. If we're talking about Nepo babies, he is the father of Orlando Magic forward Franz Wagner.
Most people don't know that.
Yep. I hate to.
So that
I mean,
payoff was not worth it to you, huh? That
Nope,
I have
nope.
2 autographed Dennis Franz photos.
I mean, it wasn't Caruso. It was. I mean, Franz was well loved. I mean, there's always like one dude in TV like that. I wasn't an NYPD Blue guy, but he is also famous for showing his buttocks on that show, right? A racy show.
Yeah.
That show.
He showed his whole ass.
Did you watch that episode? Was it good?
I don't think I did at the time.
Did he
I was
cross
not
over?
a big. I was not. I don't know. I was not a huge NYPD Blue fan, but I knew who he was as a character. I've watched a few episodes past, and it's pretty good. Like he's a good actor, and he plays that role well. I mean, I'm not a big cop show fan as much as I used to be. You know that monologue by your boy on HBO really did
John Oliver.
did make the Law and Order vibes curdle a bit there.
He had a good point, right? He kind of ruined it for me
Yeah.
too. He was like,
Yeah,
"You guys are
I-
so into cops." I'm like, "Ooh, good point." Owned.
Separate the art from the artist.
Yeah. Damn. I'm looking at Franz.
The reason I thought of Franz though was because our buddy Ben Solomon was like, enough with Tony Soprano in 2023, and I was trying to come up with alternates, like who are some hefty, white men of the '90s that we can embrace, and Dennis Franz was the first one that came to mind, and I was like, you know what? I gotta see what the autograph market is for Dennis Franz, and I'm gonna tell you guys, it's about like $50.
You paid 50. I was gonna say 5. How big
They're
are these
glossy.
things?
They're authenticated, my friend.
Wow.
They're 8x10.
I mean, I love this whole scene, but what drove you to buy a photo instead of a fan art sketch? Is he too far gone in the past to have like pencil renderings of his character?
Those would be cool, but these are signed. Just knowing that Sipowicz has hunched over these photos and laid his hand to ink. Is that a phrase? Laid the ink to the photo. It's just authenticated. That's all.
I'm looking at his stats, right, on IMDb, as we do on Cookies. Facts time. NYPD Blue, 261 episodes he was in, 1993 to 2005. That's epic. Has not done anything since. He was also in a Dixie Chicks video, City of Angels, starring Meg Ryan and your boy, I forgot his name, the best actor of all time, Nicolas Cage. Mighty Ducks, American Buffalo. He was not like a barn burner of an actor, but NYPD Blue was a sensation.
So I happened to read an interview with him after I'd purchased these authenticated autographed.
Why
by
2?
hand.
Wait, I want to get into this transaction a little bit. Why'd you?
Well, they were both good.
Oh, okay, but why stop at 2? Or, I mean, why not
There was only
choose
there
a
was
good
only
one?
2 available.
So you bought both instead of having to choose one. But if one was good, can't you just ride that out?
One would think.
Or are you putting one like in your kitchen and then one in your like vestibule?
I'm thinking both bathroom. How do you feel about that?
That's kind of a harrowing to have a police officer staring at you while you're taking a dump.
Well, I don't want people going in there in groups and doing drugs, Like
Oh, true.
the watchful eye of Sipowicz, I feel like will keep behavior in my bathroom like under control.
You'd rather have people doing drugs out in the open, in your living room, under the gaze of what movie star you have hanging there. Nicolas Cage.
You know what's always a weird, uncouth thing?
What?
Is like there'll be a few people hanging out at a house, and then a couple people will go off and do drugs in the bathroom. It's like, oh, it's just enough for you guys and not for the 6-person group.
I know what you mean, but then I always remember that those people on drugs are on drugs and they're not quite like making sense. They've turned into like that thirsty, hungry drug person. And I'm like, hey, everyone's cool here. One person wants in, and they're like, oh, yeah, our bad. We're just used to like kind of be fiending out a little bit.
Right. I agree. It's furtive drug use behavior in an environment where it doesn't really
muscle
make
memory.
sense. But
Yeah.
the comparison is pretty funny. Like, yeah, we're hanging out. Like, whoa, meet me in the bathroom. We're gonna do shots.
yeah.
All right, go take your pizza. Go to the bathroom sink. I'll be in there in 2 minutes.
Bring the sauerkraut and bring the martini glasses. Okay, so this
You guys
scenario.
hey, are you in there with Krautinis? Someone's doing Krautinis. I can smell it.
Listen, I saw you guys bring some Granny Smith apples in there, a cutting board, a knife, and some vodka. What's going on? Is that vermouth? All right, scenario. I'm totally washed, so I'm not in the game. Let's say you go to a bar, you meet someone amazing, right? You connect on many levels, like Matisse Thybulle should play more. Italian restaurants are overrated. All this stuff, like
They've got a couple. They've got a couple juniper berries. They're like, let's go into the bathroom, make some
yep.
Krautinis.
all that good cosmic stuff that a good date is made of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, yo, we're consenting adults here. Like, would you like to come over for like a nightcap or a cup of coffee? Wink, wink. You know, it's like, yes, I would love to. I will walk you there, and I would like to come up for a cup of coffee. And then you're like, great. And you're like, oh man, we have amazing chemistry. And you go into the bathroom to like kind of spruce up, and you see 2 photos, signed photos of Andy Sipowicz. Is that a deal breaker?
I don't know. One photo he does look so stern, but he was also known as a sex symbol, so maybe it gets people riled up.
Oh, it gets people horny?
That's what I mean. You go in the bathroom like, God damn, who is that stallion?
Wait. The first photo didn't convince me of his virility, but the second photo really brought it home.
Well, one is, as I said, his bust, and the other one you get the full physique, his hammy hands, his dark trousers.
You know what my issue with these 8x10s are, and they're great. I like googling them too. Not of cops, but we'll let this one fly. They should be bigger. They should be like 18 by 24. If you want an Andy Sipowicz glossy photo, it should take over a wall. So you walk in and you see a giant Andy Sipowicz. 8x10 is not enough.
I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I was like, yeah, just stick it in the bathroom, whatever. Like, I can't dedicate an entire wall to these. Like, if they were like 4 feet by 6.
Right. Because if I was a consenting adult and I went over to someone's house and there was a 36 by 50 glossy Andy Sipowicz as I walked in, I'd be like, damn, will you marry me? It would just be like over. I'd be like, I found my soulmate. Right.
And you saw like an Andy Sipowicz themed bedspread with 2 pillows with each of his eyes on just the pillows.
And the mustache,
wall
right.
wasn't a huge just version of his ass.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's different. That is a home run in a different way than marriage and
Andy
partnership.
Sipowicz race car bed.
Do you sleep in an Andy Sipowicz bed?
I
do.
I would like to. So anyway, that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to? You been watching some HBO prestige zombie films or
That's
movies
right,
or
man.
monster shows?
As people know, there's a new zombie show on HBO made by the guy who did the documentary series called Chernobyl about an underrated nuclear bench player for the San Antonio Spurs. And it's as moody and as dark. Obviously, it's about the apocalypse. But I'm not a Walking Dead guy. I think the tension of zombies is really annoying. I don't like it in shows. It's just like stuff's happening and there's a zombie. I'm like, great. It's sort of like a flashback or like it was all a dream. But the first episode of this video game show is pretty awesome, man. Really, really enjoyed the first episode.
Yeah, I heard good things about it. I read some reviews before it aired, and all of them were positive, despite acknowledging what is my initial reservation, that like it's another post-apocalyptic zombie road trip movie.
I cannot do another Cormac McCarthy thing, like shout out to No Country for Old Men, but like
Well, you're thinking of the other one.
Road.
What's it called?
The Road.
Yeah.
With Viggo Mortensen, right? Like I saw that movie. I don't need another one. Great book. I loved it, but like this was not
This
it.
is also all of them though. It's Will Smith, I Am Legend.
I like that
the
one.
No, these are good.
Yeah,
I have no problem with them either. It's the one with Brad Pitt,
World War Z
World War Z. Yep.
being remade by Fincher right now, I think.
I feel like we have seen so many versions of the family torn asunder, and who are the real monsters? Is it scared humans or the zombies themselves? And like we've just seen all these versions of this tale. I was kind of shocked that HBO would say we're going to invest heavily in a video game show that's based on the exact same premise we have seen so many times in the past.
Hans, are we the zombies? Yeah, totally, right? Like that's why I was not that excited, but I watched it and I loved it. I mean, I love Pedro Pascal, The Mandalorian, Game of Thrones. I'm a fan of this actor because not only is he a dashing, handsome man like your boy Sipowicz, but like he's kind of funny. Like everything he does has a tinge of comedy to it that I really enjoy. They take advantage of it in The Mandalorian, and you can't really see his face in most of that show. You wouldn't know about it. It's for kids. But this one is like, it's dark, it's fast, and it moves quickly through things that I think shows like The Walking Dead get bogged down in. It's like, he's a good person. I'm like, I know. It's like, okay. All of a sudden, he's killing a cop, which happens. I mean, I don't know. No spoilers.
So, okay, maybe I'll give it a whirl. I was just, again, a little bit taken aback by how cliche the premise was.
But, okay, to support, to just take devil's advocate again on this, like, what new things do we see? Like, what shows were you excited about? Those are probably tropes that another, let's say a video game head would be like, I do not want to see another like hotel allegory funny show.
Oh, that's just Mega Man.
Yeah. Because you didn't like the White Lotus #2, more White Lodi. But like, what were you excited about last on TV? Not to put you on the spot, but
I've been catching up with Yellow Jackets, and I think it's pretty good.
I like Showtime is so trashy, but that was good. I did like that 90s soundtrack, man. Woof.
Good soundtrack, yeah, I guess.
That was fun.
I mean, good reference points, but so I didn't know I had Showtime.
It's weird how that happens, right?
Yeah, I looked at my my banking app, and I was like, "What's this for?"
Did you get a bundle?
And it said Showtime. And
Yeah.
I went back and I'm like, oh, these have been periodically just hitting monthly for a year and change?
Maybe it came with the Dennis
know.
Franz. You never know.
No, I've been paying for Showtime for like almost 2 years without even knowing I had it.
Ironically, you just binging Yellow Jackets is like basically the whole year of Showtime.
But the only reason I watched it, I was like, well, God damn it, I'm going to watch Yellow Jackets before I cancel this thing. Might as well get my money's worth. I think I signed up for the free trial. That's how they get you. To watch the Judge. Is that what it's called? The one with Cranston.
Oh yeah, ooh, yeah, that was kind of good actually. I enjoyed
It's
that.
not
I
called
totally
The
forgot.
Judge. It's called something along those lines, though.
Yeah, where he plays a crooked judge. It's called Crooked
Yeah.
Judge. All right, that one about the crooked judge.
Have you guys seen Crooked Judge? What's it about? Bryan Cranston. As crooked as of a judge as you've ever seen in Crooked Judge.
I mean, that was pretty good. Also moody. Like Showtime is like a definitely the Alfreds or the Commissioner Gordons of like, we make fun of prestige HBO stuff, but this stuff is just better. Like, Chernobyl was just a better show than anything that you can see on Showtime is, but Showtime's nice and trashy. It has Billions on it. I kind of enjoy that. Paul Giamatti, like, off of those Dennis Franz fumes, just
Are they
profiting.
still doing the whole like Showtime After Dark?
No, the whole After Dark industry, I think, collapsed.
Maybe that was Cinemax. I don't know. Yeah.
There was Cinemax. There was also HBO, like Tales from the Crypt. That whole industry, I think, not only because of the internet, but I think we all just got racier. Like, we can see Dennis Franz's ass on prime time.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up that we all, mourn print media, but like softcore pornography. Like, where's the epitaph for its demise?
Yeah, yeah. I went to what do you call it? Antique shop, I guess, and they were selling like baseball cards and plates and odds and ends and furniture and all that, and then a stack of Playboys from like the 80s and 90s, and there were kids in there. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was like, yeah, these have no like danger to them anymore. They're just like things of a bygone era, where at some point they were like sort of like Tales from the Crypt. It's like, oh my god, are we actually watching Tales from the Crypt? It's like, yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, we come from a generation where like getting your sweaty little palms on a copy of Playboy was like
Insane.
a big deal. Like, guys, gather around.
It's
I
like,
got some news.
get through the pages
you-
of Jerry
did you get some
Seinfeld
auto-
in like
did you
a varsity jacket.
Did you get some autographs of
Skip
Dennis
those.
Franz?
Yeah. Skip that
Dennis
interview
Franz?
with Caruso.
I was about to say Dennis Franz, 21 questions.
Yeah. Hey man, we went to the Neiman Foundation to check that out, and that was like that whole era of just like, yeah, he was jet setting all across the world. I'm like, well, how did he afford that? He was like, he used to do little drawings in Playboy. I'm like, oh right, this was like $1 million industry.
It's like, who else wrote for them? Norman Mailer.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, these magazines were just sitting in plain sight with like kids, just like not even paying him any mind, just like glossing over them to like Dick Tracy cards and like she's like, what's 21 Jump Street? It's like, well, it was an old show. It's really odd to see.
So I remember hanging out with my cousins who were a little bit older than me. This is a long time ago, and they were living in a VW camper,
Yeah.
as one does.
What city are we talking about? LA or New York City?
This is upstate
Times
New York.
Square. Oh, okay.
And yeah, and they did not have wheels. They were just sleeping in
Oh,
the camper. They were
man.
living in the camper for a summer.
Wait, were
I mean,
they like
They
Marxists?
had wheels, but the wheels were flat.
Right.
They're hippies.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going in there, and the older one was like, "Hey, Ben, check out this nature magazine." And I'm like,
Gotcha. You're like, this is
I-
Jerry Seinfeld in a varsity jacket.
and I open it up. I'm just like, Sipowitz.
It's a cop magazine.
Top asses.
And it was a Hugh Hefner publication, I assume.
All right, so The Last of Us. Maybe I'll check it out. I don't know, man.
But okay, you don't.
If everyone says it's good, I believe it's good. And to your point, no such thing as a new idea, I guess. Whatever.
Right, like, okay, this is not an accusation. This is not an affront or an attack on you at all. But I'm just gonna
So
throw
it definitely
this
is.
out there.
Okay, go on.
I think it's okay not to love television, right? Like, if you're not gonna watch this show, fine. If everyone on Twitter is talking about a weird hotel show where people get into some hijinks and you don't want to see it, it's fine. That's kind of like me and like the NFL now. I could just like not watch Wild Card Weekend and just like read about it and be like, "Ooh, there was a weird play. That was a replay. That was crazy." Like I don't watch the NFL like I used to anymore, but it's okay not to care about prestige HBO stuff, right?
Oh, totally. And you know I don't watch a lot of stuff. So when you're like The Mandalorian, like I haven't seen it. Like Game of Thrones, I haven't seen it.
Right, right, right. I'm just
I don't
saying.
know who
I'm
this
just
actor
saying.
is.
Right. Oh, he's great. He's great, man. But yeah, like I love television because I am a loser. So I watch everything I can get my hands on because I literally have nothing else to do.
But so my question here though is like you're saying you're a loser, but you have streaming TV.
I'm on top of something. Yeah.
You're able to like watch whatever you want. You don't have to go to a theater. You don't have to queue up. You don't have to buy popcorn. Like you can watch whatever you want in the comfort of your home. Not like those broke boys
I don't want to be
forced to go to movies.
I just don't want to be classist here. Like we're getting Avatar #2, more Avatar numbers, and they're huge, right? The Golden Globes was just on TV, and a lot of those movies are just like people waited in line, bought a ticket, sat in a theater next to other people, paid the popcorn tax. Like that'll be $12. Like that's how much it costs when you don't have the internet. So like I don't want to be classist and say like I do have the internet, I have a screen, and I can pretty much watch anything I want with a few clicks. But I do feel for the people who don't have the internet, who have to go and experience this thing with other heavy breathers, like some guy who's kind of rude. Like that is just poor people stuff. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just watching the show on my iPhone 9, and these people don't even have the internet.
What's the last movie you've seen in a theater? I'm trying to figure it out. I saw the Bill Strobeck skateboard screening thing,
Right.
but that's different.
That's different. That's a party.
That was an event. It was a party. I actually am not sure.
Dude, was it fucking 1917 at Hot Dog Legs' birthday like 4 years ago? Was that the last time I was in a theater? Because, you know, our good friend, our beloved comrade, Hot Dog Legs, loves the fucking movies, man. Holy shit. I mean, maybe we should get him like an iPad for his birthday? Maybe a subscription to the World Wide Web?
All right, check this out, dude. It's called Netflix, but you need to be online before you get it. But yeah, you can actually
you
just
lost me.
watch stuff on it.
Okay, so what if I'm online? How do I watch it? Does it just show up on my TV? It's like
I would say maybe start with like a YouTube. Like so YouTube, you can like kind of get the hang.
So you need a
of watching
laptop or a phone.
videos at home. Yeah,
Right. So he's going to need a lot of stuff. He's going to need a phone or a laptop and a phone service to call the internet company to come over and put in internet. Or you can steal it from your neighbor, whatever.
I mean,
these are a lot of
honestly,
steps.
the way you're describing that, I think I'm just going to keep going to movies. I'm going to keep
Yeah.
paying $18 to go see Triangle of Sadness over at like Essex.
And you're going to need to pay that milk dud tax. That'll be $12 for those junior mints. It's like, well,
I
does it
thought
come
about
with a leather jacket?
I thought about going to a movie in person recently.
Why?
I was trying to kill some time, and I was like,
Jesus.
all right, I got about 2.5 hours. Like, do I want to go back to Brooklyn? But I'm going to play some ball later. So I'm like, how do I just kill 2.5 hours? Because like I don't want to go and have a beer because I'm going to play basketball. So like, you know, I want to keep my wits about me. So I went into the theater and I was like, I can't actually do the math here. Like, if this is a 2-hour movie, are you going to subject me to half an hour of previews and things about turning my phone off? I might not be able to watch the end of this movie before I have to leave. So I think I just went and had a beer anyway.
An end beer, a 2-hour beer. Yeah, man, like the movies don't quite make sense to me. Like when great filmmakers like Martin Scorsese are like, this was meant to be seen in a theater, James Cameron. I'm just like, oh, you're poor. Right, I get it. Like, we don't have to talk about it, but like, okay, I see you. Respect.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I don't really believe anyone went to see Avatar. This seems like a dispatch from a
I've
parallel
not met
universe.
anybody who's seen it.
Like, that's what I mean, right? Like, there's definitely no one who went. Like, wow, the numbers are staggering. You can just say what you want. No one's in those theaters. It's just an empty thing. Like, another packed house. Like, who knows? You're saying people literally paid money to see Avatar 2 in theaters? Like, actual humans? Nah.
Well,
Nah, not on my watch.
it's a serious issue in our country, right? Like
It's a serious
poverty,
allegation.
poverty and homelessness. So like when you see CNN, like I'm being serious, like when they're reporting numbers on like homeless people and people who are really affected by this inflation period, even recession if you want to call it, and they're all going to Avatar 2. Every one of them is watching this Blue Man Group movie, paying $14 for jujubes.
And honestly, that is just my privilege and entitlement. You know,
That's right.
There is like an economic barrier in which I just don't understand what it's like to be impoverished and imperiled and forced to go see Avatar 2 multiple times, like maybe even 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times because there's nowhere else to go.
That's right. I mean, you have 5 Gs. They don't even have one.
So I don't want to blow up your spot here, Andrew. No, I don't. And
Okay, right.
you've gotten
So
a little
don't
bit
do it.
you've gotten a little bit of acclaim lately. You helped put together a flash mob saying Karma Chameleon on the subway. So congratulations for that. And can you just tell us a little bit about how that came together and what your inspiration was for bringing back flash mobs?
Well, we were on the subway together, me and you, Ben Dietrich, and we were going to see the Nets, and you were like, I'd really love to do this flash mob thing that I love doing, but I'm too scared because the moment's too big for me. I don't have that dog. And I was like, step aside. I'll take the last shot here. And I busted
Yeah, I
out
remember
a
that
viral
conversation,
video.
yeah.
Yep. I was like, listen, if you don't have that dog, if we x-ray your chest and it's only glizzies, I got this, man. I got that pit bull, man. And, a few million views later, the proof is in the pudding.
It sure is. It sure is. So everyone knows what a flash mob is. They had their moment. I guess it was sort of indie sleaze era. Maybe very early social media. There was definitely a connection there, right? To Foursquare and like Facebook and MySpace and
Vine.
flash mobs.
Yeah.
Well, Vine felt a little bit later.
Well, this
But
was
Twitter existed, but it was still like, hey, what's crazy? We can meet up with total strangers at like, I don't know, a Home Depot, and we can dance there. How crazy would that be?
It was, I mean, obviously it's a wink to old musicals, but I think it became popularized on the internet, and I'm guessing here, by the Spike Jonze video for Fatboy Slim. Remember, it was an amazing video at the time, and I think that's where people got this idea where they were in front of a line of poor people waiting to see the movies. This is before streaming, so that we were all going to see movies then. But and then all of a sudden, someone would put down a boombox, and a group of people that looked like they were going to the movie would start dancing, and then it ended up being a whole routine, and he joins in. It's kind of an amazing video, like one take, I believe. And then it kind of caught fire on all these platforms. Who's watching these videos? I don't know, because as soon as one of these pops up on my phone, I throw my phone into a river.
There was a loser innocence to that era of the internet. When we talk about online dating, you realize that no one who is basically under their early 30s has experienced adulthood without the presence of Tinders and Bumbles and things like that. But prior to that, internet dating was for losers. It was just like, it was a known thing. Like, internet dating is for losers. It wasn't like, all right, bro, let me get some swipes in.
Right.
It was for losers.
All
And I
dating
feel like-
services were for losers, but
there were-
especially the internet.
and I say this with love. They were for losers. They were for like, oh, my mom got divorced. I think she like met a guy in Maine, and like,
What's
he's like,
Maine? Maine catching strays, man. What did Maine do?
I don't know. I don't even know if this guy existed. The guy, you know, I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah, go Canada, man. Like a normal person.
Yeah, he's a former NYPD officer. He's kind of heavy. He's got a mustache. I think.
Great ass. I've seen it.
Yeah, he was actually featured in Cop Asses in 1997.
Yeah.
Hoverboard.
It's a nature magazine. We're in a trailer.
You actually might have known him. He was in Crooked Judge 2.
What's that one about? Wait,
Right, it was
did I see that one? What was that about?
Is that the one with the Crooked Judge? No, that's Crooked Judge 1. Oh, right. But anyhow, I think flash mobs fall into that same conceit where it was like this period of time where the hyper nerdiness of the internet was starting to merge with IRL stuff in a way that it had not yet, where it was like, whoa, you're meeting someone off of a message board? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And dating and flash mobs were in that thing right now. I'm sorry, we're in that exact like spongy area. So for them right now, it is kind of like a nostalgia for the innocent loserdom of the internet, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like, do these trends on the internet kind of cycle in and out, sort of like Zubaz at this point? Because we hadn't seen a flash mob appetite for a while, and then all of a sudden someone told me, like, this has gone viral. This guy gets... We're talking about the Karma Chameleon. I think he was on the C train or E train, maybe. And someone was saying, like, this guy gets 1 million views every time he does this. I'm like, God damn, I'm not on TikTok, so like I assume this is happening on TikTok, but I'm gonna go there. An Asian guy doing this on an Asian government-run platform is kind of suspect.
You're saying psyop, no pun intended.
I'm saying like psyop. Yes, I am saying that. Because there was too many Asians to be suckered into this. This is a white person problem. And then all of a sudden I was like, yo, this Asian guy is starting it? And then you pan out and there's another Asian guy. This is some devious kind of identity profiteering / internet warfare.
Okay, I like where you went with that. Mm-hmm. Made it racial here on MLK Day.
World War III isn't going to be with guns. It's going to be with flash mobs.
You know, I like this idea that internet trends are cyclical in the same way that they are offline and always have been. We've talked about this a million times, but that the cyclical nature of whether it's fashion or even politics, whatever it is, and whether that's 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, whatever that duration is, you know, that has typically been applied to those sort of culinary trends, fashion trends, whatever. So it would also make sense that internet trends would cycle back around. I don't know what that means because it's also hard to identify what those trends are from the past, especially with the internet, until they start happening again now. It's like, all right, yo, everyone's doing like Osama in a blender now.
Right.
You know, a lot of the things like memes are so specific to a certain time period, but flash mobs are one that I think you could identify as being very much of an era and an example of, as what we're saying, cyclical trends repeating.
Dude, totally. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's like funny cats, right? Like I was really into these funny cat things. It was
you sure were. You're a
Woo!
legend in the funny cat game.
I am, sadly.
Still are.
Right. But I believe it is completely out of people's minds, out of people's fashion. It is just like when one of those pops up, if it's a good one now, tip of the cap. But like in general, these accounts I think are very tough and like kind of define cringe to me a little bit. Maybe because I was in too deep, sort of like a judge who is conflicted morally on the stand and he's pulled between his family and his duty to society, as seen in Crooked Judge, a show about a crooked judge. So I was like a crooked cat memer. I was pulled between like, this is extremely lame and this is extremely awesome. But I think it has yet to come back, but it will. We see it faster with language, right? LOL was all the rage, and then LOL was banned by internet cops, and now it's back. People are like, actually, it's very helpful. Exclamation points, LOL. All these things are helpful in communicating on the internet. And
You know what?
What?
Great point. I feel like flash mobs were from an era where you could do like rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off.
Right.
There was specific stuff like, was that when people used to say douche chills?
Yeah. I did not think about that, but yes. Right, and you can't really do that now, right? Because if you do
Look, douche nozzle. That was the era of like using douche constantly as a the douche bros,
D-bags.
douche nozzle,
Yeah.
D-bags. Totally that era.
Yeah, before, we realized it was kind of gender offensive and sexist and all this stuff, right? But it is the era, right? So the language cycle's quicker. Like, no one does LMAO that much anymore. But there was a very
you know what? Another one, ass clown. People really like using ass clown in that.
ooh, I like
period
that.
as well.
I'm down to bring back ass clown.
Cop ass clowns.
Yeah. And wait, what was that one that Lil B said all the time? That his catchphrase, swag, right?
Pretty bitch.
I had to unfollow Lil B, and then I actually went to check if he had unfollowed me, and he had, which is amazing because he's famous for following like more than 1 million people. And at some point, somewhere, if you were on Twitter, you were followed by Lil B. But I think his assistant or him went through his list and probably started deleting people that didn't follow him back, which is like totally fair game.
We're on the same page. I followed him at some point. He followed me at some point, and now we operate in autonomy.
Yeah. Ooh, let me ask you this question. Let me pose this. You are the crooked judge here. I've had a friend for like 2 decades. He's a great dude, salty as hell, into sports, football, basketball, but like is definitely of the era of like, does he want it enough? Mamba mentality, all this stuff. Knicks guy, Giants guy. Really good friend of mine, man. I've done shirts for his project. We used to hang out all the time on Ludlow. And we all started Twitter. And for years, he would just antagonize me. I'd just be like, well, like Carmelo Anthony is actually a really good player on the Knicks, and we should give him some sort of slack. And he's like, no, he doesn't have that dog. What has he ever won? And like, we've had this relationship forever.
He's like, look, Melo is an ass clown, and he's giving me douche chills.
Exactly. He was at my wedding. Like, this guy's my friend, right? But I don't really consider Twitter like an extension of my life as much, work, whatever. So I blocked him because I was tired of like spewing debatable takes and have him just being like always coming back to Mamba mentality, dog, practice in the gym, all this stuff. And then he realized I blocked him and texted me, and he was just like, yo, you blocked me on Twitter. Was that a mistake? I'm like, nah, I just didn't want to talk about that stuff, and I can't mute you because you still show up. And he was like, yo, I'm really offended. I was like, no, we're good, man. Like, you're still my friend. But like, I just don't want to deal with this stuff on Twitter. And like, I can't really ignore it. So like, I just blocked you. And he was like, yo, this affects our friendship. I'm like, does it? Because I don't think it does. But if it does, I'm sorry. I'll unblock you. But I don't think Twitter is an extension of our friendship. And we haven't talked since.
I think most people would be offended. I like your sort of casual way. Hey, man, I'm just going to block you. Don't worry about it. I just don't want you to see a reply to my tweets.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. But now that Twitter has evolved, I'm like, that wasn't nice of me, man. But at
I mean,
the time, yeah.
I hear you though, because like I don't block anybody on Twitter unless they like talk shit.
Now this was like 4 years ago, 5 years
I
ago.
don't have a problem with people disagreeing with me. It's like if I blocked you, you generally did something dumb.
Yeah.
And because I do not antagonize people. I don't argue with people. I don't insult people. I just sit there and drop my Ben Simmons takes, and people get mad about them. And I'm like, it's cool if you disagree, but you want to start being insulting. Like I don't do that to you, so relax. You're getting blocked.
Well,
I don't block any friends though.
This is a specific situation though, because I would throw up like us on my classic stupid takes, being like, like Frank Ntilikina is actually not as bad as we think. He's never been able to shoot, but we like him as a big on-ball defender, which he can maybe be. And he would respond, be like, "That's trash." And then he would text me, be like, "You didn't respond to my tweet." I'm like,
yeah,
let
that's
me
too
look
much.
it up. And it was like, well, what am I supposed to say to that? He's like, well, I thought we were doing Twitter. And I'd be like, well, I don't think he's trash. And then he would just be like, but this is why you don't know ball and you're a casual. I'm like, I can't do this, man. So I blocked him.
Yeah. Now I get it. That's more understandable. All right, moving along from your internet life.
I just want to know, crooked judge.
I feel like it's fine. the thing of like I responded to your tweet. Here's a text message. Why didn't you respond? Like that.
Yes.
That whole
Yes.
rigmarole is too much.
Yes.
So we're talking too much about Twitter, but here's one other Twitter-based conversation. I mean, we can start with Twitter. We'll extrapolate outward. Some gentleman by the name of Casey Climbs. He is a design strategy guy somewhere, according to his Twitter bio.
Sounds like a real person.
He's, alum Google Maps, sweet tech lad. He said, quote, "NYC is nice to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there." That he's quoting that. That's like he's saying that is something that people say, which we have heard, of course. And then his commentary on that is the thing about NYC that's unlike any other American city is that visiting here and living here don't have anything in common. They are entirely different things and cannot be equated.
That was a response. That wasn't him, right?
Well, NYC is nice to visit, but wouldn't want to live there is a cliche. People say that all the time.
Yeah, totally.
His commentary on that is that, again, new NYC is unlike any other American city because visiting here and living here are entirely different things.
Yeah. I mean,
Is that unique to New York?
no. Like, that's the whole funny part about these debates, and this is gruel. I love these debates. But, like, life isn't like this tremendous, peaceful, or chaotic thing, depending on your city or environment or all this stuff. Like, I feel like it just is. So when someone takes a swipe at New York City or any city, it's like, LA is boring. When I say that, I'm like, oh, am I boring? Like, it is just a projection of what you're thinking. Like, hey, man, if you can't afford the internet, New York is going to suck. You're just going to be in line for movies every single day.
I guess my question is, okay, we can say that, yes, living in New York and visiting New York are two different things, sure.
Yeah.
But can we name a place where it isn't?
I know.
I'm trying to think of one. Like, all right, I went to Boston. Well, then you've lived there.
Right.
Yeah, so I got 2 nights in Oklahoma City. You might as well be a resident.
And this almost happens with every city I visit, and I meet up with a local, an old friend. And I say, just like the random things I say when I'm on trips, being like, yo, Kyoto's amazing. Or Taipei's incredible, or, any city I'm in. And their response is always the same, like, yeah, thanks, that's why I live here, but if you stayed here for a month, like, they would not treat you nice. Like, you're not that welcome here. They know you're a tourist, like, but if you stay, like, this happened in Tokyo, my friend was like, I think I told this story to you before, they're like, these people, bartenders, cafe, restaurant workers, if they notice that you've been around longer than a few weeks, they'll turn on you, because like they don't treat people who stay here well because of opportunity, jobs, just like territorial stuff. Like that is conversation as old as time, right? It's like, you're a stranger. Why do you think, like, locals only kind of stuff? But yeah, visiting and living are completely two different things, right?
I just feel like it's hard to figure out a place where it would be the same, because if you're visiting somewhere, you're not working there.
Right.
You're
You don't pay
trying
rent.
to go to whatever the like best restaurant is, or whatever the gallery is, or it's all new to you. I don't know. It was just such a bizarre take that New York would exclusively have that attribute, that it's different from visiting. I'm like, I can't name a place on earth where if I went there for 2 days, it would be the same as living there.
Yeah.
Like, because you're not. It's not the same thing.
All right. Well, if you think about, like, every time I go to travel, I'm not like shopping for groceries and like cooking in my hotel room or Airbnb, or I'm not like trying to figure out how to wash my clothes. It's a whole different ecosystem when you're visiting. And when tourists and local people cross over at restaurants or at games or whatever, that's when it gets kind of like fun and interesting, because there are people who are not like you. But yeah, my daily life is like not one of someone who would visit here.
Yeah, I'm just bewildered by the idea that the experiences would be parallel. Like, okay, you're going to visit Utica, New York. You're going to be there for 2 days. Hey, it was fun. Yeah, I stayed in a hotel or an Airbnb that I had never been in. I worked during the day from my computer. Went to a little local bar, went on a little hike. I guess that those are the sort of things that you might do if you lived there full time. Sure. But the experience is different. You're not living there. You're not building a life in this place. You're not trying to forge friendships and relationships and professional relationships, and you're not sick of every single thing around. Like, I don't know. Just a very strange concept, sorry.
Yeah, and it's sort of like an internet algorithmic kind of thing, right? Like, the more people talk about New York, the more I think it's doing something right. Sort of like if you do a pod and someone is just like, again, being like, you guys are wrong about everything. I'm like, cool, thanks for listening. And like, New York, we're not getting compared to Syracuse, right? Like, New York is constantly being like, well, what's the best city in the world? It's not New York. You guys, like, vertical living doesn't work. It's green elsewhere. And like, it is always a topic of debate because it's the best place. It's awesome. It's worth it. Like, all these like rent reveals being like, look at this crappy apartment. It's $3,000 a month. I'm like, yeah, but you step outside and like, you get why it's expensive, because everyone wants to live here for a reason. I love this city.
Yeah, same. But even as your example, right, we're using Utica or Syracuse. It's like, when you live there, the reality of you living there is very different from the reality of being there for 2 days and then bouncing.
1,000%. Yeah.
Which is the case for everything. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, weird point. I don't even understood why he made it specifically about New York. I just, yeah.
It's funny. It made me think of one time I think I went to London or something, and I was on an airplane. And I found myself like at Heathrow, and I was wearing. You're gonna laugh. I was wearing the New York Bart Simpson tee, Nick shorts, and Wallabies.
A walking cliche.
And then I caught myself in the mirror, or a reflective glass surface, and I was like, fuck. And I was like, and it occurred to me that not only was I representing like a New Yorker, I was representing someone my age, an Asian person, a Chinese person, a Taiwanese person, a person who is traveling. I was like, yo, I gotta step my game up a little bit, and like, so that now when I travel, I wear like a button down, nothing serious, a button down, clean pants, and same Wallabies, but something more presentable. But when I'm at home, It's those Nick shorts, baby. That's what you're getting.
I only travel in pink Victoria's Secret sweats, and I have a huge
Juicy
neck
couture.
brace
Yeah, yeah.
that I have with me at all times.
I mean, I just did not look acceptable, and I felt like it was my responsibility as a person representing like everything that I'm about to just like wear a nice button down and like not have like a pillow on my neck constantly. And it's so old fashioned of me, like, like, a salesman going city to city with a suitcase dressed up in a suit. It's not like that, but it's kind of like that. I was like, when you're visiting a city, be respectable, tip a ton of money, be nice, accept advice, all this stuff as a visitor. In New York, I'm an asshole, man. I'm wearing my Nick shorts. I'm not tipping. I'm at the movie theater watching Avatar 2. It's just like wild.
Every now and then, someone will get mild internet notoriety for writing an article about how we should be wearing like tuxedos while on planes.
That's right. That's right.
And my thing is like, yeah, I get that. If you want to be like, you know what? Being in the air is like going to the opera, and it makes me want to wear a top hat. Like fucking go off, Mr. Peanut. No disrespect. But if you're going to be treated like cattle by airlines, I don't really feel like this is a two-way road.
When they make you take off your belt, it's just like, don't make me take off my shoes and my belt. This is like not good.
That's what I mean. If you're being treated like livestock and being jammed into places and asked to like chip in more money to check a bag or pick your seat, I'm like, do not expect me here as Mr. Peanut. I'm sorry.
I know. But when I'm waiting in line at Panda Express for those delicious, delicious Asian cuisines, I like to look nice, man.
Before we move on, I just kind of want to retract something here.
Wow.
The living in New York versus visiting it thing. I think living in New York is probably more like visiting it than other places. I'm going to say I think the whole premise is cop ass backwards.
Go on.
New York, what do? You go out. You see people. You have drinks.
Wait.
You take,
who does
you take
this?
the subway. People who live here.
I'm watching Oklahoma City Thunder games on my iPad 2 in my wealth of internet.
Many people.
They say.
Many people go out for dinner, go out for drinks, ride the subway, go to art openings, do things that are very similar to the way that you behave when you visit here. Like, yes, people who live here don't go to the Empire State Building. People who live here don't go to, I don't know, see the Statue of Liberty. But how many tourists do that every time?
Well, to your point, yesterday my good friend was in from out of town from LA, and she was like, hey, I have a couple hours. What should we do? And I'm like, hey, I kind of want to see the Hopper exhibit at the Whitney. Let's go there. So we went to the Whitney, and it was like packed with tourists. And I'm like, I was happy in there. The Whitney's an amazing place, but I was doing a tourist ass thing.
But this is what I mean, though, right? Is that like there are tourist ass things, but there are also things that we do anyway here.
For sure. Yep.
Oh, we're in town from LA. We wanted to go to these restaurants. Oh, you have a good list. Yeah, those are popular restaurants.
For sure.
That New Yorkers also go to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what are some things that New Yorkers do that tourists don't do? I guess is a question. Because that seems more anomalous than...
Right. Go to the gym because tourists don't have a membership here? Unless they go to
Whole
Equinox.
Foods. Yeah, Whole Foods.
But they do, though, right? Because people are getting Airbnb, so they're going to Whole Foods.
Sure.
I don't know. This whole premise is very flawed, Andrew.
I like it. To be continued.
So I'm going to say this. Living in New York is exactly like visiting it.
I like it.
Exactly the same. There's no difference.
So all these tourists are Nick shorts and Bart Simpson tees?
Exactly the same. We could talk about the New York City mayor down at the border, but I'm kind of done with talking about Eric Adams right now.
He's the giving tree of comedy, so we'll talk about our mayor who's in on the take at some other point when he does something hilarious.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like we had a good New York conversation. We don't need to get into the crooked mayor to go along with the crooked judge and all the
No.
ass clown cops. Like, I feel like we kind of covered him, so to speak.
There's going to be these amazing personalities will always provide us with something great. Like I'm dying to talk about George Santos, but he's gonna do something really funny. So let's save it.
Yeah, that king.
He's funny as hell.
He's gonna supply us with plenty of content, I suspect.
This ain't over. Santos is not over. Welcome to Santos.
So, we're in an hour. I feel like we can start talking some hoops.
Love hoops.
Again, maybe the games have already started. I don't know how early they started popping off today, but again, not the most enchanting menu today.
Hey, easy, man. Brundog and Randall are balling.
They definitely are. I mean, that's probably the best game we got here. But I saw a tweet. It's just so much Twitter-based stuff. Man.
Yeah,
I'm
what
sorry.
the fuck, man?
I don't know, dude.
You're just flaunting your wealth. You and your
I have the internet.
LTE. Yeah.
I logged on.
It's like that Sons and 4 guy, but you got 5G.
Well, I got to be honest. I'm a little bit hobbled right now. I was playing ball the other day, and someone attempted a wild Euro step and kneed me in the knee, and it's been like swollen to the point where like there isn't that much definition in my knee.
Oh,
Like it's just like a mushy, fleshy mound, and it
ice and elevate,
hurts
baby.
quite a bit. So I've really been like inside more than I would like to be.
Yeah, it sucks, man. I was lifting a table, and I heard something crack in my wrist.
Oh,
Getting old sucks, man. And I've been dealing. This was like 3 weeks ago, but I still have a pain. I don't think it's cartilage. I think it's like a weird tendon issue. I can still use my appendage, but like, yo, not good.
that doesn't sound great. I got to be honest with you.
Sucks. Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought I had located the tweet that I was going to mention, but I think Steve Jones or something like that. I forget. Anyway, let me just get to the gist of it. He was saying that the NBA has gone too far with its alternate jerseys and alternate courts, and that teams do not have identities right now. And between this confusing identity for various franchises and player movement, it is too hard for fans to keep up. Andrew, do you agree with that?
Fair enough. Like, obviously, my obvious take is this seems like a whistle to a bigger idea. Maybe young people, maybe fashion, maybe something cultural that he's not in step with. I do miss like seeing all Lakers fans in yellow instead of like purplish blue. But what is he talking about, man? Like, I want more jerseys, more Swamp Dragons. Like, the Nets should be able to dress up as lizards from New Jersey like 5 times a year. We can keep track of this stuff. It's not hard. But if, let's say we're talking about TV shows, right? Like, I want to experience the Star Wars universe. It's like, well, what do you want to start with? It's like, just watch the movies. You'll have a great time. And then you can go deeper. He is thumbing his nose at the world of, like, variety and... What's the right word? Like, that nerd world. What am I looking for? What is that right word?
Flash mob.
Flash mob, right. Asian culture. TikTok.
Well, I think that his position, which a lot of people agreed with, of course, like this is just branding 101, you know,
Yes.
is that it reminds me of a basketball version of the hand wringing and like think about the children, and in this case, we are substituting, you know, the poor, casual, moronic fans, just they're drooling, their eyes glazing over as they try to watch the basketball whipping around on the court. Like, dude, what team is this guy on? I don't even know who I'm watching. Like this fictional fan who is bedeviled by names and logos and colors and has no idea what's happening here. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know what? Enough for me, man. I used to like this sport and I'd love to get into it, but like, I don't even know who's playing. The Denver Who's now. So to me, it is a fictional, tulpa, a conjured entity that represents what the author of this tweet finds irritating. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I feel like there's too many jerseys, there's too many courts. I don't get confused because I'm an expert, of course, but the fans, they would surely be dumbstruck by all these changes that just coincidentally irk me.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I miss? The matchups between Kobe Bryant and Clyde Frazier. That's what I want to see. Where were those games? Can't I just turn that on? It makes me think of, like, I think the best fan experience that I can think of is the Grateful Dead. I don't care about their music. I fired my therapist because they were too into talking about them for 15 minutes every hour, every week. Woo! But I love the way that world interacts with the fans. And, like, you can just like the music, Touch of Grey, whatever. I don't even know the music. Like, what's their most popular entry point? You can go to the show, and then you're like, oh, I want a t-shirt. Like, cool. It's like, well, how serious are you? Do you want to go into, like, the vintage history of this whole thing? Like, there's different varieties of shirts and different characters. It's like, oh, you like the show? Do you collect bootlegs? Like, are you a completist? Oh, you enjoy them at Citi Field? Do you follow them around the East Coast? Do you go to the West Coast? And, like, it's a really rich experience, right? But you could just go and enjoy the music and not do martini backs in the bathroom in the portable Johns. But I think the NBA could use more of that. But this guy's complaining at just a little of that. Like, alternate jerseys are not hard to figure out. It's true Donovan Mitchell is no longer on the Utah Jazz. But if you're so into Donovan Mitchell on the Utah Jazz, name me the top 5 Donovan Mitchells on the Utah Jazz.
I also think these are two totally different things that are being conflated as puzzling to the idiotic imbeciles who are vainly trying to keep up with the modern game. Because to me, it's like when people only casually follow basketball, that's not because they say, well, the jerseys are confusing, or like, I don't know what players are on what
Right.
teams.
Right.
If those things puzzle them, it's because they don't pay that much attention to the game. It's like we're it's not even a chicken and the egg thing. It is an obvious path to, I'm not that into basketball, therefore I don't really know what players are on what teams and who has what jersey and logo,
Right.
because I'm not paying that much attention. And if there are people who went from being more dedicated basketball fans to being less dedicated basketball fans, I would say it's less a product of those things and probably not a product of those things, but to stuff like, you know what? I got a new hobby. I got a new job with new hours. I started dating someone who doesn't care about sports. Just something changed with their relationship to basketball, and then they fell out of touch with it, and then all of a sudden say, oh, I didn't know Paul George was on the Clippers. Like,
Right.
oh, right, because you don't pay attention to the game.
Right.
It's not because Paul George is on the Clippers that you stopped watching it.
Right. I'm in the center of the Bing Bong, the eye of the Bing Bong hurricane. And there was one night where an ex-recent champion dropped some buckets at MSG. And they were like, oh, the Knicks suck, man. We can't let these no-names like Pascal Siakam score this many points on them. I'm like, okay, we're talking about two different things. I think I need to leave this conversation because fair enough. Like Pascal Siakam is somebody in this world. And I am so washed where I'm like, well, you're talking about a top 15 player here. Here's my top 14 before Pascal Siakam. It's like annoying. I'm more annoying than he is. But like, right, if the universe appeased to this person and was like, okay, you just started a new relationship. You have not followed the NBA since like Kobe retired. let's say there's zero player movement, no new jerseys. You get drafted, you're on the team, people age out, and that's how teams will operate now. Do you like it? And he'd be like, well, what do you mean Paul Pierce retired? It's like, well, he turned like 48 years old. It's just like, well, I don't like it. Where's Sherman Douglas? That's who I like, Sherman Douglas. And it's like, well, time lurches on, right? Like, it's an Uber. You know, it doesn't have a white and black checkered stripe on a yellow background. You know, I don't know.
I mean, look, I think there are certainly people who may have been fans of a team. Let's say OKC.
Yeah.
And like you know what? I love KD, and then he left. I love Russ, and he's gone. I liked Harden, and they had traded him. All right, they have Paul George and Chris Paul. Well, they're gone too now.
Right.
And I just don't know these guys. I liked us as a contender. I liked the stars they had, and I don't know these new guys, and it looks like we're going to be bad, and I'm not that intrigued by that. That's all very natural to me. But that's not because of player movement or uniforms. It's because of what happened to a specific franchise. It's because a franchise changed directions. Like for me as a Sixers fan growing up, when they traded Iverson, I said, fuck these guys. I'm not going to pay attention to them right now. I don't care about Andre Miller. I don't care about the team that they're trying to win with right now. It's not appealing to me. I'm going to watch the Nuggets because I want to watch AI and Carmelo play together. And I just went and did that. I knew what the Sixers were doing. I paid attention to them. But my rooting interest changed because they traded the player that I wanted. But that wasn't a player movement. That was the fact that a franchise shifted, and with specific individuals.
Yeah, I always think about like fans who get angry. It always occurs to me. I was watching an NFL game, and the fans were just distraught. These Raiders fans looked like they were having an existentially sad night. And I always want to be like, yo, you can just choose not to care or just like participate in any way. You can dress up like a weird biker or silver face person. That's amazing, obviously. Juggalos are the best. But like, you know, these are the lessons, this is in our book, like that Jeremy Lin taught me. I was as heartbroken as you can be about them giving up on Lin. And then that lasted like a week, and I was like, you know what, I love the Knicks, like whatever, James Dolan, whatever. You know, like I hope Jeremy Lin has a great career in Houston, where he went. And I'll make a shirt to commemorate it, whatever. I'll participate in a different way. I'll embrace this kind of funny thing. And it's like, it takes a skill, I think, to be like a human who has interests, to just like be chill about it. Like being calm is a skill. It's like, well, this is not my favorite restaurant. It's like, well, what can we do about it? And it's like, oh, it's fine. You know, like I'll find something to enjoy here.
And that was my thing with the Sixers, where I was just like, well, I'll just wait until they do something that I'm intrigued by and start following them again. And in this case, it was hiring Sam Hinkie.
That was fun. Super
Like
fun.
it took a few years. I was like, all right, they're hiring a smart guy from the Rockets who are doing interesting things. He immediately makes a trade to start a rebuild. I'm like, I'm down. You know, you couldn't convince me that it was fun to watch those teams under, you know, Larry Brown and Doug Collins. I just was, especially Doug Collins, because at least Larry Brown had AI. But
Iguodala was fun.
I'm not gonna. He was a good player, and then he left.
Yeah, yeah. And then you were like, I'm out on the Sixers, and then these pictures of Andrew Bynum started popping up of his hairstyles, and you're like, I'm back in.
I was paying attention to Bynum. I wanted him to play. I liked Bynum.
Bynum was so good on the Lakers, man. That was like not the greatest trade to make, but also Bynum was good enough where it's like, doesn't matter. You got a good player.
I mean, it obviously ended up being a calamitous trade that was so bad that it made the Sixers organizationally go back to the drawing board. I mean, just a staggeringly bad trade.
Because of his health and like what he timed out. He clocked out earlier than we thought.
I mean, he just didn't play for them at all.
Yeah.
And then they obviously had to cut him loose. So that there was a failure of research, of doing a physical, whatever the case may be. But I mean, yeah, they gave up Iguodala. They gave up the draft. They gave up Vooch, who went on to become a multiple-time All-Star. They gave up draft picks. They took on Jason Richardson's bad contract. Like, it was just a shockingly bad trade. But anyway,
But he was good. I mean, I didn't like the trade either, but Bynum was good.
At the time, I didn't even really hate it, just because I was like, yeah, Bynum's a really good player. Hopefully he'll be awesome in Philly.
Yeah.
I did not know that he was never going to suit up for them, essentially.
I know.
How old do you think he is right now?
Not as old as Obi Toppin, but I'm going to guess realistically 33.
35.
Yeah. He skipped college. He was a very young man on the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, he was 18 in 2006.
Amazing. I mean, he wasn't like a cornerstone superstar, but he was really good, man.
I mean, if you looked at his numbers on those Laker teams, you could look at him and say, especially before he had injuries, like, this guy's going to develop into a real force.
A Walker Kessler-esque, maybe, as they say on the
But
streets.
you look at his numbers. In 2010, 2011, 2009, you could look at him like per 36 and, like, this guy's putting up 17, 11, 2 blocks. That's a guy that you would say, he's in his early 20s.
Especially in that era of centers. Yeah.
He can be the tent pole for our organization. And then Philly acquired him, and he did not suit up for the franchise whatsoever.
I'm really psyched on the Sixers, because, and we don't have to go into the Sixers, but we can. Like, they are an awesome team who have had very odd things happen to them. Like the Markelle Fultz thing, whatever you think about the trade, people don't talk about that enough. People always talk about Ben Simmons, who was one of their home runs, and we don't have to do that. But, like, they are still a great team, and they let Jimmy Butler walk for nothing, and they're still awesome.
I mean, and this is a testament to the dog, Hinkie. He just left them in such position that, screwing up multiple times, they were still okay. Like, bungling draft picks, they just had such high-end talent. They had guys who were tradable, and they had draft assets, and they had cap space. They had so many things going their direction that even bungling many, many, many things, it still was fine. So just, we can talk about the Sixers briefly here, because they're one of the hotter teams in basketball right now. Mm-hmm. They are now 27-16, which puts them only a half game behind Brooklyn for the second best record in the East.
Brooklyn's having a tough time now, though. So
they've lost 2 in a row with KD out. Mm-hmm. At least 2 in a row. I think it's 2 though.
And Simmons didn't play. Yeah.
And Simmons, without, again, we don't even need to go into the Simmons thing, but watching how he's played lately, I'm like, this is how he looked at the beginning of the year. This is how he looked in 2021. There's something wrong with him.
But he has helped their defense. Like, regardless, he helped when they were going like 18 for 20. His defense was important.
Well, he had that streak of games where he looked healthy. We were at the Bucks game at Barclays Center, and he looked phenomenal. He was housing people in traffic, doing his little, like, Euro step into his Brady hook shot. He looked like the Simmons of old. And then after coming back from a hamstring, he is not doing athletic things again. That's what it is. It's like he's doing the stuff that being big and smart and having good hand-eye coordination allows you to do. He can get some rebounds, he can pass, he can set screens, he can steal the ball, he can get a block here or there, but he's not doing the stuff that requires burst or lateral movement or attacking the lane. It's clearly an athletic liability at this point, or an athletic deficiency from him. Anyway.
Yep. Go on. Yeah, move on.
Anyway, moving along. Anyway, the Sixers are really good, despite, as you said, all these things that have happened to them in the past. They are still a very, very good team, and to me, their roster should make them a contender this year and next year and going forward, if they stay healthy. And right now, Tyrese Maxey came back, and he has been the subject of some criticism, because since he has returned, the team's defense has struggled. And over the last week, they eked out 2 wins. very close games against Utah and the Lakers, both squads that are below average, like sub 500 teams, and we're missing tons of their good players. Utah didn't have Markkanen or
Olynyk.
someone else.
Olynyk.
Yep, or Olynyk.
Who I
And
like
the Lakers,
quite a bit,
of course. The Lakers didn't have Reeves. The Lakers didn't have Anthony Davis. And both these were like very tight games that the Sixers squeaked out. Andrew, is Tyrese Maxey hurting the Sixers with his presence?
Yeah, I mean, we've been on this for years regarding players like him and a certain player in the Knicks named RJ Barrett. And my contention with these guys are they're exciting, they're lovable. I mean, especially Maxey. Like, he looks like my favorite player. You know, like, just like, I like this guy. How good is he? You know, I'll start with there. But they were always kind of one-dimensional prototypes, and Maxey had a great season last year, and they went into this season, both of those guys, I'm going to pair them together, as like their respective fan bases saying, like, are these multiple-time All-Stars? We have one of our big three in one of these guys. They will be an All-Star this year and the year after, and be one of the good players for our generation of our team. And Maxey, he was hurt, but like he was having a tough start to the season. His usage kind of changed. His pairing with Harden wasn't super fluid. And if he's not scoring efficiently, then like his defense is not of note. He kind of turns into your scoring inflated shooter that we always talk about. And same with RJ Barrett. Like, if he's not getting buckets, then you almost have to hide him. And that's not good. So I believe the Sixers had like a top 5 defense while he was out and dropped to 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, depending on what website you're looking at. I think looking at him realistically will help the team. And it won't please fans, but like he may be more of a unitasker, and they might benefit from having a chaos player in his place.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to blame him for the whole
Nope.
defensive decline.
Nope.
Part of those games,
Joel was
Joe
out.
wasn't playing, and Harrell has actually been pretty decent for them, I think.
I love the way you say his name.
Harrell.
I mean, no, it's Harrell. Sort of like Neptunes.
Anyway, Harrell has played pretty well for them, and I think I was skeptical of him as an addition, but they've come up with some decent lineups around him that have been successful. So like, all good with that. But he is clearly not the same kind of defensive player as Joe. So when he is playing starters minutes,
Right.
that is a problem. But that said, Maxey is not a good defensive player. In fact, he's quite bad. And adding him at 30, 35 minutes a game to that gruel, that porridge, that stew of minutes, clearly waters it down.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is just cooking, man. Like, hey, we got this little bowl we're cooking here. Oh man, this is so flavorful. Here's a whole bunch of water. Is it still as
Right.
flavorful? No, it's not. You just dumped in a whole bunch of water.
Right.
So, yeah, of course it went down collectively because some watery ass defense got thrown into the crock pot.
Yeah. And you can account for that, but when you add it to Tobias Harris and, to your point, Montrezl Harrell, like, it becomes an issue. It's one too many cups of water, right? Too bad there's very, very interesting players just like sitting on the bench or getting few minutes, and I'm talking about like B-Ball Paul and Matisse Thybulle.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, Thibault is clearly a great defensive player that Doc, for whatever reason, has decided that he doesn't want to make him that rotational. I mean, last game against the Lakers, I'm almost certain that Doc pulled Melton because he was 0 for 3 from the floor.
Weird.
Like, that's
Yeah.
the kind of stuff that Doc does.
Yeah.
Oh, Melton doesn't have it tonight. He's 0 for 3. He won't play in the second half. We're going to put a lineup out there that has never been on the court together, that has no good defensive players, that gets annihilated and almost costs them the game. But I'll do that because I think Melton's off.
Right.
And Doc does this kind of shit a lot. And I don't even want to go down like a Doc warpath here, but that's the kind of thing that is so antithetical to the way that I view basketball, where like he's off tonight because he was 0 for 3 on threes. So yeah, let's just stick him on the bench for the whole second half.
It's like chasing. It's chasing, like in poker or the stock market.
Yeah, that's what he does. He's like, I trust my gut. This guy doesn't have it tonight. This guy does. And sometimes you're right.
You will
But
be
it
right.
doesn't have to do with your gut. You're going to be right sometimes.
For sure.
Like, you're not always going to be wrong.
And you
but
will
it's
always
basically-
remember the times you were right.
Right. It's basically flipping a coin and and hoping what happens is correct. But it's even worse than flipping a coin. But anyway, all that to say, with Tyrese Maxey, I think if you look at what people do on a basketball court, it's like, do you defend on the ball? Do you defend off the ball? Do you rebound? Do you protect the rim? Do you get the team, more opportunities on the offensive glass? Are you creating shots for your teammates? Are you setting people up and all those ways? And you'd say for someone like Tyrese Maxey, not really. Those aren't
Not
what
yet.
he does best. And this isn't just a Maxey thing. This applies to a lot of the guys you mentioned. This applies to, we can say, guys like Jordan Poole or Tyler Hero or RJ. There's
Anthony
a lot of
Simon.
guys.
Yeah.
Anthony Simon, guys who are like, I'm a professional bucket getter. That's what I do. I am in the league for one reason and one reason only, because I can go out there and get buckets. I can shoot. I can make layups. I can finish. I can create off the dribble. Like, I am a bucket getter. So the thing is, though, like last year when Tyrese Maxey had a scoring, efficiency of about 60%, that's valuable. That
So
is a
much.
valuable
So much.
bucket getter.
Yeah.
But this year when it's 56%, that's below Embiid, that's below Harden, that's below Tobias. It's like, okay, well, what do you bring to the table? And I'm not suggesting that he shouldn't get minutes. Of course he should. And maybe those numbers will get boosted back up. But I just don't see why he should be playing 35 minutes a game. That's more my thing. You look at this roster and you say, we have two guys who have won the scoring title for the last 5 years or something like
Right.
something like that.
Shots is
You know,
not
we-
the issue.
Harden looks incredible. Joe is an MVP candidate. We don't need a third scorer in the mix for 35 minutes a game. Like,
Right.
you just use him a little more sparingly, and then use your guys like Thibault and Melton and dudes who can flesh out lineups to give them more attributes than just scorers.
And it's a point of view that's common. I think a lot of people could relate to Doc Rivers and be like, yeah, but if you add another bucket getter, like no one will outscore us. We are going to win games. And I think me and you both agree. It's just like, while that may be true some nights, what will win you games is defense a lot of the nights, especially when you can't just double down on the thing that you're good at and expect to be better than someone else at it. I think there's counters to everything. It's a game of counters, obviously. But like, I don't think Doc is looking at the game in terms of like, I don't know, it being circular. I think he looks at the game as a straight line. And I think he sees a win in linear terms. So to your point, like if a shooter like Melton is not shooting well, but he does so many other things on the court, like play defense. He's like a smart switcher. He's kind of like a mini quarterback on defense, like extremely valuable player who doesn't need to shoot. But if he's not doing it, Doc is like, I know how I'm going to win this. It's going to be to outscore you. And I think it doesn't have to be that way.
And look, you could look at the profile of the Sixers right now and say, this team is top 10 in offensive rating. They're top 5 in defensive rating. They're 6th in net rating. They are currently 27-16, half game out of second place in the East. Why are you ragging on Doc? They're good. And I'm like, but no one doubted this was a good team.
Right.
This team is supposed to have a great offense. This team is supposed to have a great defense. This team is supposed to have a great net rating. This team is supposed to have a great record. They are built for that.
Yeah.
That they have a fantastic roster. What they're supposed to do is win a title.
Right.
And like
the window is now.
And when I look at the way that they do things, I say I feel like there is a ceiling here that has been imposed by Doc Rivers because they are not getting the most out of this team. And the other thing about Doc is that when he's trying lineups with just Maxey and no Embiid or Harden, if he was doing this for player development, I would say sure, whatever.
Right.
If he was doing this to get data or try out new things, I would say, yeah, go off.
Tibbs does that with
Cool.
RJ. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Try it out. See if this guy can handle that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But Doc doesn't do those things. Doc doesn't care about data. Doc doesn't care about player development. So he is doing Maxey only lineups because he plans on doing it in the playoffs, because he wants to do it.
Yeah.
We've seen this for 3 years straight now. If Doc wants to do something, you can't stop him from doing it. He's going to do it. Doesn't matter if the numbers are bad. Doesn't matter if it makes logical sense. If Doc wants it, he's going to do it. So I would say strap in, because these lineups that are like -7 right now during the regular season with Maxey as the lone, like, quote unquote star on the court, or with Trez, they're like almost -10. You are going to see them in the playoffs, even if you say it's not going to happen. Doc will make it. Doc will make it do. Doc will make it happen.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. And as a Knicks fan and as someone who loves, obviously, the draft, shout out to the KBB, but like when the pairing of Maxey and IQ like dropped into the Eastern Conference was like very exciting and joyful. I thought the scouting comparisons were interesting, and IQ was always kind of the more versatile player in my mind. He's not going to score as much, but like he's kind of an oddly good on-ball defender. He's kind of like crafty. He's a chaos guy who takes chances, and a lot of those chances to me are intelligent chances. And he can shoot pretty well enough. And Maxey was just like a buckets guy. Like he was bigger. He didn't have the ball handling skills or the pure point guard skills, but he was a tantalizing dude who I absolutely would take after IQ. And after last season, IQ didn't do much, and Maxey kind of balled out. I was like, we're gonna have to wait on this take a little bit, or like I'm totally wrong. But this season, the water's leveling a bit, and you can see like when Maxey's shot isn't falling, he doesn't do as much as when IQ's shot is not falling. And I'm pairing them because they were a tandem in college, you know. And
I think IQ is definitely the better defender.
he's a better defender. I mean, they're kind of the same.
I think IQ arguably is better as
same
like
overall.
a passer.
Yeah.
But Maxey is an extremely gifted scorer. I mean, we've seen him do some awesome stuff, and
He's awesome.
you know, and granted, he is not in a position to allow him to be like a high volume scorer that he could be on a different team.
Mm-hmm.
That is totally fair. I mean, the fact that he's putting up 21 a game while on the Sixers is a testament to like he can go out there and get buckets, and in a different situation he might be averaging 28. You know, if it wasn't, but I don't know if that team would have a good offense either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe they're just closer and more intertwined than I thought they'd be. Because last year I was like, Maxey is the one, and then it came kind of back to earth, sort of like Scotty Barnes' profile, kind of like is pulling him back a little bit. The way his scouting report described him to be ended up being true, but I don't know. I love the IQ Maxey situation moving forward, and barring, I mean, this is like George Santos, right? Like we will be talking about Doc in detail when the games kind of tighten and we have series and we get to see rotations. But I agree with you. I am not liking his instincts here. This is the time to kind of mess around and play Melton and B-Ball Paul and Thibault, these really unique, disruptive players that every other team would love to have.
And one other note about those, quote, Maxey only lineups, which I don't think are very sensible, is that Maxey is way, way, way better when he's out there with Harden. Harden is a genius basketball player who commands so much attention that gets Maxey open threes and also gives him lanes to attack closeouts because he is just such a phenomenal passer and creator and facilitator. With Harden on the court over the last 2 years, Maxey has a true shooting percentage of 64%, which is absolutely elite. Like, that guy doesn't need to play defense.
Right.
That guy doesn't need to rebound. That is a weapon. when Harden is off the court, he's league average with
Totally.
those other deficiencies that we mentioned. So, like, to me, the idea of having Maxey only lineups is just so self-sabotaging that I know Doc Rivers is going to be dedicated to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and aside, not to get all hokey, but I am so grateful that James Harden is back to his like dominant level, because I enjoyed him so much as like this intelligent, just insanely gifted offensive player, and I thought we were kind of like vibing our way out of that. He's a mercurial personality. He's getting older, injuries, but we're seeing it again, and I'm like really pleased, because like I thought this was over, and to be able to watch him dominate again in a James Harden kind of way is fucking awesome.
I mean, all you had to do was look at his numbers without Joel last year,
Yeah.
and it showed that they were the statistical equivalent of what he was doing as an MVP candidate in Houston, like per 36. You know, like
Yeah.
the talent was still there.
Yeah.
It was just how is he being used, and that's kind of why I'm less enthusiastic about Maxey only minutes. I'm like, will you please just have Harden or Embiid on the court at all times? Like, these guys are brilliant players who you can build an entire offense around. Like, you don't need to give your like distantly third best player a chance to like run the show. Like, put Harden out there. Maxey is better with him, and James Harden needs to be able to play as many minutes without Joe as possible, even for his own ego, so he can get out there and cook and feel as if he is the star of the show, and he won't leave to go somewhere that says, hey, look, you're not going to win a title here, but you can go back to being James Harden superstar. You can come back here and put up 30 and 11 with us. Like, you got to let James Harden eat here if you want to keep him, I think.
And I kind of want to push the Bulls up in our conversation a bit, because like I do feel a lot of these amazing teams like the Sixers and the Nets and the Bucks are like, we're seeing the vision, and we're seeing what kind of team they could be if they added another piece. And people are looking at the Bulls kind of like as a snack, right? Like, there's been chatter of Alex Caruso. The Warriors and Knicks have been kicking those Alex Caruso tires. And like, if he's available, which there would be no reason to think he wouldn't be, if he's available, like, if you're not going to play Thibault and you have Maxey kind of like watering down your defensive stew, like, Caruso wouldn't be that expensive, and he could really help the Sixers, I think.
I think Caruso would be very expensive.
You think so? But
He's a very good player who has
Very
two
good.
more years on his contract after this.
they're $10 million
And
each, though.
That's nothing. The cap's going to keep going up. You know what I mean? I just mean
That's what I
nothing. You don't even,
mean.
you don't
You
even
don't-
blink at paying 10.
But you don't send, right? Like, if you want to match salaries, like, you don't have to send a superstar the Bulls' way.
Oh, right. That's true. I just mean his salary also makes him more valuable. But yeah, you're correct on that. It's like he is an impact player who isn't making 22 a year, where you have to figure out a way to make the money work.
Right.
You can send a couple bench guys and make
Some
it
picks, some
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you don't have to send the Tobias contract back. You can, like, I bet you they would take Thibault and a bunch of like picks, whatever. I don't know their picks and how good they are, but Thibault for Caruso might be interesting. I don't know if they can re-sign Thibault.
I would be kind of surprised if they traded Caruso, only because he's got 2 years left on that contract, and you've got Lonzo there, who is also on a longer contract, and you can sit there and squint and say, I know Caruso is in his, he's in his 20s, whatever, or later 20s. He's not young, despite the fact that he hasn't really been a prominent player for that long. But you can sit there and say, all right, well, at least next year we've got Lonzo, and Lonzo's got a player option that he'll probably like take up
For sure.
in
In a second.
2025.
Yes.
So, we can get rid of our old guys, Vooch and DeRozan, whatever, and at least have a young backcourt. I don't know what they want to do. I mean, the Bulls are in a weird position because when they're healthy, and that's including with Lonzo, they were a very good team. And even with Lonzo out and those other four guys we just mentioned together, they've got some pretty good lineups where, you put Ayo out there with them and they're like a +8. And you say, like, well, that's a playoff team. We've seen them beat good teams. They beat Philly. They beat Brooklyn. But then overall, they're sub 500. They're not good on offense. They're not good on defense. I don't know. Do you look at them and say, well, if we can just stay healthy, we could surprise somebody. We could go out there and maybe beat someone in the first round. It's theoretically possible. Or do you say, let's just bottom this out, try to get a higher draft pick, slough off, pause, all the players who are worth draft picks, and just start over? I don't know.
I mean, Vooch is 32, DDR is 33, Levine's 27, Caruso's 28, and everyone else is kind of like youngish. I don't really count Drummond in there. Dalen Terry is their 20-year-old draft pick, who's kind of like a more chaos defender, not much of a buckets guy, but he's in the waiting. Patrick Williams is 21. He's kind of not as exciting as I'd hoped he'd be, but Kobe White's 22. I would say this is not worth keeping together to win one playoff series, which sucks, right? Because I like what they did. We talked about this when they made the trades to get these players. At least they're trying. At least they're like, okay, we cannot get an alpha dog. We cannot get a top 15 player. But what if we get a bunch of top 20 players? Like, can we win this way? It's like, cool. It's not my team. You guys, like, I like this idea. You suit up against Vooch, DeRozan, and Levine, and like that's not a cakewalk. Those are all-stars. But if you want to pull out to like a world view kind of on this, it's like not close to a championship and aging rapidly.
To me, the guy that you would trade is Levine. I don't know if you do that now or you do that later on. He is a good player. I like
expensive though.
I like many attributes about his game, but the fact that he's going to be making 46 and 49 million in 26 and 27, the second one of those is a player option.
He's taking that option. Yeah.
I mean, that's 4 years left on his contract. And look, he's still pretty young. It's not that he's going to be
27.
He's going to be 31, 32 years old. He's going to be washed by the time this contract is up. He'll still be a good player, but I just don't know if he is worth almost half of your salary cap or 3/4 of your salary, or excuse me, 2/3 or a third or whatever it is on a guy who, like, he's good, but not a superstar. And if you got his money off the books and you said, well, Vooch only has one more year, we can let him walk. DeRozan, we've got around, you can always move him. And then we've got Lonzo and Caruso kind of as our younger backcourt. I don't know.
I mean, I say this IRL so much where I forgot to say it now. It all depends on Lonzo Ball, right? This team was constructed with him as a defender, distributor, shooter. Huge part of that point of view. The Bulls are kind of stuck because they have to evaluate where they would hedge on Ball. I heard he can walk. I heard he's less pain now. He can walk down steps and stuff. Like, he's getting his everyday facilities back, which is a great step because the stories we heard a few months ago were really alarming. He couldn't walk down steps without sharp pains. It sucks. But if he can come back at 80% of what he was, like, this team makes a lot more sense. But that said, if you look at the standings and you look at every team is kind of getting better or worse at the same time. And I don't know if it's a static league just waiting for Lonzo Ball to come back. In the play-in currently, we have Pacers, Hawks, Bulls, in the mix, Raptors, Wizards. A bunch of, at least two of those teams will sell a piece, whether it be Miles Turner or Trae Young. I don't think that's going to happen. Or the Raptors say, like, hey, Fred VanVleet is gettable to a contender. What will you give us? If the Bulls just let those things transact, they could say, well, we're definitely going to be in the play-in, and let's try to win a couple games, maybe a series. Like, this is our season, and then we'll wait for Lonzo Ball to see what he is.
I think alternatively, someone like the Bulls when confronted by this dilemma, also has to look at their young guys and say, what do we think of them?
I don't like
What do
them.
we
Yeah.
What do we think of Kobe White and Patrick Williams? What do we think of Dalen Terry?
That's-
Io. Is that a worthwhile group to focus on? Or is that a group that we're comfortable tanking with and saying we're really going to scrap it? Hopefully some of these guys will, come through, but we're going to put together a team that's going to win like 9 games next year.
Those are 4 players that remind me of like a failed LeBron build. It's like LeBron and who? It's like, Patrick Williams, Aya DeSumo, Dalen Terry. Like, I hate that it's such a star-driven idea, but there's no usage guide there, I don't think. Like, Kobe White's not efficient enough. They're still on the hunt for they don't even have a Benedict Mathurin type player on their team. I don't love that prototype, but like that's at least something that's helpful that you need on a winning team.
I think what I would do, the Ben approach here
Wow.
is like we're not sellers right now.
I like it.
We're not buyers. We're just going to hold. We're going to try to use this core, see if we can put together a winning streak and try to make a little noise in the playoffs. And maybe we get Lonzo back. I think you just have to know if Lonzo is going to be able to like play basketball again
Totally.
before you make any real decisions here.
Yeah.
Because if Lonzo is just jacked up like for life, that we're never going to get a healthy Lonzo, you may not know that, but you would have more insight than like me and you.
100%.
Or if they're like, dude, we just don't think this guy's ever gonna be able to like play basketball on the same level without like an inherent risk of him just missing seasons all the time, then you got to reevaluate the situation in a different way.
Yeah.
But to me, especially with Vooch coming off the books, DeRozan only with 1 year left, I think you just say like, you know what? Well, let's
Ride it
just
out.
see what we got this year. Let's try to make the playoffs, and then reevaluate after this year.
And this is what sucks about this kind of talk, which is my favorite conversation, but also like, let's say I just want Vooch to just play out this contract and he'll be a free agent. But what if the Lakers come at you and be like, hey, we'll give you one of those picks for Vooch? You'd be like, done in a second, And like, it depends on, let's say someone does blow the Bulls out of the water with a Levine deal that is like akin to a Donovan Mitchell trade. Like, that changes the calculus a bit. If we just say, should we trade Levine? Like, that's a hypothetical conversation. So like, we need to get into like make-believe stuff, trade machine stuff. But if a team was, let's say the Knicks fans have been pining for Levine for years. I am not one of them, but let's say it was a package of a draft pick or two, their B level draft picks. 2 of those, maybe RJ Barrett, maybe not. Maybe it's Obi Toppin, maybe it's Grimes, maybe it's IQ. Like, if I was the Bulls, I'd be like, so be it. Maybe so.
Yeah, I mean, I can sit here and say I would hold,
Yeah.
but if the reality was someone's like, hey, we'll give you, 3 first-rounders and 2 pick swaps for Levine. We'll give you 2 first-rounders, or we'll give you a first-rounder for Vooch because he's expiring, and we'll give you, 2 first-rounders for DeMar. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. yeah.
All right, guys.
Right.
You know that whole thing I just had about how we're going to stick together and I believe in this core? Yeah, just disregard that.
Right.
Because, we just got like 7 first-round picks back for you guys.
Yeah.
Like, best of luck. And we're just going to stick here with Caruso.
I think Levine and DeRozan might be able to get a nice return for even a Bulls loyalist. I don't think that they are just players that you get whatever for. I think teams would maybe bid against each other for Levine.
Yeah, his contract is
Oh my
tricky to
God.
absorb,
It's a
but
lot.
I think a team like the Lakers are like, I know Russ is playing well right now,
Shout out to
but
Russ.
if the Lakers were like, hey, all right, Russ, we'll match the money and we'll give you those 2 first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
I think if you're Chicago, you have to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe the Lakers wouldn't want to do that. Maybe they don't think Levine is like their answer 5 years from now.
Yeah. I used to think Levine was one of those slam dunk guys who just got a name because he was like fucking amazing in the slam dunk competition, like just incredible. And I thought like he was one of those guys that we like Desmond Mason. I was always like, he's good, right? And I was like, oh yeah, he's just an amazing, maybe one of the best dunkers I've ever seen, but like a fine player. But Levine actually turns into a good player, and it's funny how like the slam dunk competition can warp my perception of players, and I think it's worth doing because you can get into a situation where you're like Obi Toppin being like, well, he's good, right? I'm like, yes, a cool dunker, but like it added years to Nate Robinson's career for sure. But as we're looking at the dunk competition kind of take form, like this Mac McClung thing is really interesting, right?
I like the idea of allowing G Leaguers into the mix. I think that's fun.
Why not?
People have talked about allowing professional dunkers in, but that's not fun.
I agree.
Because those guys are too good.
Yeah.
And all they do is sit around dunking all day. Like, they don't even have to be good at basketball. They're basically acrobats.
They should be halftime celebrations.
Yeah, just to expect NBA players to be better at dunking than guys whose entire life is dedicated to doing crazy jams and practicing them and like performing them. Yeah. It's just a different sport.
Yeah. And I do love the All-Star Weekend being like kind of a family affair. Like this is the NBA community. It's like the circus. Like we are all here to perform for you, and this is what our flamethrower does. This is what our tiger person does. This is what our acrobat does. Like I like it within one container.
So why was McClung named to the dunk contest? Was he? I mean, I know he's a white dude with ups, and people have made some funny jokes about it because it's in Utah, and that may be all part of this strategy that they're coming up with an underdog, a little white guy to go out there and do jams in front of the fans in Utah. But you got to remember though, the fans at the All-Star game are going to be basketball fans
for sure. Yeah,
it's not going to be just like Utahns out there.
I don't think the typical Utah can get in the building.
Beehive State.
It's like, oh, let's get.
But yeah. So it's going to be people who are NBA players and executives and people who work in sports marketing. It's not going to be like, wow, a bunch of people from Utah enthralled by the little white dude. Even though I like that theory.
Yeah.
But my question is, and I'm saying this from a position of extraordinary ignorance. Was he named this because he won a dunk contest in the G League? Is that how this occurred, or why is he in it though specifically? What was the reason they chose him?
I don't know about G League competitions, but since he's been in high school, before he declared for college, he was known as the filthiest in-game dunker ever. Like, just if you go to a sizzle reel, you're like, damn. He's kind of like a trick shot dunker, and it looks cool because he's not super tall, so he has a reputation that precedes himself.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just curious if there was like, well, we're gonna do a G League dunk contest, and the winner gets to go against NBA players.
No, he was known as like a phenomenal dunker that college teams were worried that his game wouldn't translate to a team game, so he didn't have any huge recruits. I think he transferred to Georgetown at some point. I forgot what his first college was, but known as a dunker specialist.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I know what you mean though about players being defined as dunkers. It's always been something that NBA dudes have professed being, wary of. That the guys didn't want to be in dunk contests because they thought that it would, define them as players. And maybe in the case of Levine, it did happen a bit.
Gordon too.
But I also think like, to who though, right?
Wow, are you shaming the people who just want the Celtics to have one jersey?
Well, I just mean who's exactly, but like who is like, this guy's only a dunker. Are we talking about the fans? Are we talking about the media? Are we talking about players? Are we talking about teams? I don't know.
Right.
Like Aaron Gordon, he's like, well, I'm only known as a dunker. That's because you're only been good at dunking.
And then when he started only dunking, he became like a very excellent player. It's like, oh, forget the mid range. You're not a superstar. You're just a dunker. And he was like, I'm just a dunker. I'm like, ooh, you're very good.
It's like, well, Vince Carter and Kobe and Andre Iguodala and all these other guys from the dunk contest weren't known for just being dunkers. It was because you were just a dunker, man.
Oh my God, Andre Iguodala. I was looking at his sizzle reel the other day when he was in his athletic prime. God damn, he was exciting to watch, man. That guy's cool. I like the dunker defender combo. It's very appealing to me. He's a good player, man.
Is Iguodala a Hall of Famer? I think he might be.
I would say so, but I am very loose with Hall of Fame guys because it's always like players we love and followed for decades, and like some old assistant coach on a college team. I'm like, okay, if this assistant coach Lifetime Achievement Award Hall of Famer is going to get in, like, please put in like our favorite guys. Like Andre Iguodala deserves to get in. Championships or not. Yeah, man, he like shaped this whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll make it. I'm looking at it, and again, he's got a Finals MVP. That's like
that's when they were talking. He probably makes it,
along with 4 titles. Although he did not play in last year's team very much at all. He's got 2 all-defensive teams, which is less than I thought he'd have. I thought he'd have about 5, and he only had 2. He was all-league, but only all-rookie team. That's a tough one. I mean, again, I would not have an issue with it, but I do wonder when people look at it and say, like, yeah, but those years when they won titles, he averaged under 10 points every season. He was kind of a specialist. We know he wasn't that good of a shooter on a team that was really known for shooting. I think it might be tough for him to make it. But again, I would not have a problem because we know he was an extremely good player in Philly. He was a great defender. He was a good passer.
Denver. Yeah.
Good finisher. I mean, and he really was one of the reasons that Golden State team took a leap. But I think when people say the defense, that was Draymond. And Iguodala will kind of get overlooked, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he just hit those Robert Horry shots. But this is why I love the MVP discussion. And this is why I'm like, put Marbury in, man. Like, he meant so much to the league, and a lot of people would bristle at that. But I think he obviously, to me, gets in. And this is the difference, and just talking about the NBA player pool, not talking about like announcers and team owners and all that. Like, the All-Star game is in Utah, and I heard Malone's going to come off the grid to present himself to the public world, and John Stockton is going to be honored there. And these are like Lifetime Achievement Award MVP guys. Obviously, they get in, Hall of Fame guys. Obviously, they get into the Hall of Fame. They're some of our great players, but like, what an awkward thing to talk about this Hall of Fame week. And this conversation is going to be interesting, right? Because Stockton politically is very controversial, and Malone societally is very controversial. And like, how I think the NBA can just cruise. I think you just put him on the floor and people will applaud or boo, whatever. But like, it's going to be spicy, man.
I mean, we were out in Cleveland at what are they called? Microbreweries, the gastropubs of the American heartland.
The fully loaded restaurants.
We were over there pouring these 9.8% alcohol.
Love Cleveland, man. I loved it.
Hazy dogs to go along with our
chilling with Guy Fieri and greats like Guy Fieri and some other people like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, Guy and friends. But the NBA All-Star game being in Cleveland, then Utah, then Indiana, really getting away from its All-Star Freaknik branding.
But why not, right? Like, these are important NBA cities. All those teams have been huge in the last few decades. And it was New York. It was LA, I think, recently. Like, why not? Indiana is the basketball capital of the world, apparently. Not the Mecca, the church, maybe.
Well, also, I think it's just a matter of every franchise gets the All-Star game.
Of
And
course.
that's just how it shook out, right? And I've heard people say, well, it should just be in Miami and LA and New York. And I'm like,
Nah, I like this.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that wouldn't be more fun in terms of spectacle, but like, who made you the crooked judge? The crooked jury and the crooked executioner.
Right.
Let the Utahns over there in the Beehive State, let them enjoy the festivities. One thing I did appreciate about Cleveland, other than the Hazy Dogs, was that
Fully loaded.
it was
loaded
cool to
fries.
walk around, and the fully loaded Hazy Dogs,
Yeah.
was to walk around a downtown of a city and see so much stuff dedicated to basketball. Like, that was fun, just as people like us who really, obviously love the game and know more about it than anyone else on the planet.
Wow.
It was really cool to see these imbecile fans embracing the sport, because normally they're really confused. Like, oh, what team is this guy on? I don't know the team colors anymore. What's this pattern on the floor?
Yeah.
Who's ever heard of the Utah Jazz?
Yeah.
But it was nice because, like, those clueless fans can look up and be like, oh, that's Luka Doncic. He's on the Mavericks, who are blue.
This year, or remember the graffiti Mavs jerseys? They got to bring those back, man. Shout out to Hank Willis Thomas too, who unveiled his sculpture, who we hung out with in Cleveland, friend of the pod,
Came on a perfect pod. Yep.
an incredible artist. I agree, because he threw on he had an exhibition downtown. It was like, remember when the All-Star game was split between MSG and Barclays? It was awesome, but the city wasn't taken over by the NBA. It was just the city, and then when you go to the arena, it was like cool. But I do like the opportunity for the celebration and the visuals and the whole culture to kind of be bigger than just these arenas. Sort of like SantaCon, but you're dressed up as like all different NBA jerseys. What if SantaCon was like the only alternate jersey for the Brooklyn Nets, the ones that said like Bed-Stuy or maybe the Coogee ones, and you had people frolicking in Borum Hill, bar to bar. Headband.
Well, the thing is, like,
all headbands.
now, maybe that's for people who are visiting New York City, but like living here, they just wouldn't understand, like the Kris Kringle alts.
The elf signatures.
The elf alts.
Yeah. The Miss Claus throwbacks.
Like, is that the cop asses one?
Is that the Rudolph Coogee?
As seen by Celebrity Row representative Dennis Franz.
Is he still alive? We gotta make
Yes,
sure
he's
he's
78.
alive. Oh my god!
I looked it up.
Oh my god! It would not have been the perfect pod if he was dead. But since he's alive, we did it.
Question: Chub Rock alive or dead? We'll never know. Goodness.